Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. My name is Majinder Pal Kaur. I am presently in Malaysia, in my hometown where my mother lives, and I had travelled here a few months ago to be her carer. But then the coronavirus crisis broke out a few months ago, and it's come to its epic right now, where countries are in lockdown, including Malaysia. But because I had travelled to Singapore, I was not able to continue being my mother's carer, and she was moved to my sister's home, and I am alone in this house. And yesterday, when I decided I would go to the local Gurdwara, and I called the committee to find out what the arrangements were, I was told I should not come. And I had planned to do my SIKHS Covid Samastadivar. So like millions out there, today we are alone at home in a scenario which could be very sad and difficult for some, but where those of us who are in a position where we can help others, we could turn this around to be something of an opportunity. So I quickly sent out a message to all my WhatsApp friends and Facebook friends to ask how many of you would like to volunteer for the United SIKHS Helpline, which will be a listening helpline where the vulnerable, the elderly, the needy, who have a telephone number or a WhatsApp number or an email that they can write to us from, we will respond with some help. So the name of the project is United SIKHS Listening Helpline. You can participate in this by undergoing this training, which I'm going to give you in the next 5 minutes. It is not to teach you anything you don't already know, because the moment you responded to me and said, I would like to volunteer, amongst you are an ex-MP, a CEO of an education charity, businesswomen, a realtor, someone who's an educator, a PhD student from Kashmir. You all came because you had something to give. At this point of time, you want to give to those who are not able to go out there and get some food, medicine, or are generally lonely. Because when I realized I couldn't go to the Gurdwara, I decided I would visit my mother from a distance and say my fateh to her, albeit fearful that I was putting her at risk, but with enough faith that I must do something about the many other mothers and grandmothers who probably cannot be visited by anyone and found themselves alone in a building, in a house, or even in hospitals where no one could visit them. So this helpline, I will go through the training, through the who, what, where, when, why, and how questions that help you remember what we're doing. So this is a helpline. This is not for you to go out and give food or to go and attend to the ill or to run errands for them, because most of the countries that we are going to be operating in are in lockdown. But this is to be giving an ear so that someone who wants to say something can be listened to. So it's a listening helpline. You will be tempted when you're listening to someone's problem to want to solve it for them. Be mindful that you have to be practical. We are in an unusual situation where both the receiver of help and the giver of help are in a lockdown situation. So we will venture to only help on the phone. That is not to stop you if you find that 2 streets down from where you live and where the law and the arrangements allow you to go alone to drop something at the doorstep, that you will not do that. But in the main, 90% of the time, you must aim to be an ear to listen to someone's problem, or to signpost that person to where they can go to. For example, the frequently asked questions which we will put out to you are, I have a cough, I have a fever, and I'm feeling breathless. Do I have coronavirus? Where can I go to have it tested? What do I eat? Is drinking warm, salty water the answer? What should I use to wash down the knobs of my door? How can I make sure that I have cleaned my house sufficiently? So these questions, these women or men or children who may call you about are questions whose answers they probably have, but they need to be reassured. So this listening seva is for you to give them your time, because they are alone and they have no one to turn to. So why are we doing this? So that in this point of crisis, when the world is united not by grief, but by equality of a situation. There is this one virus that has brought the world down to its knees, that all the aggression and bullying in the political and the geopolitical world that was taking place in all the major players of this geopolitics was going in the direction where people were saying, is there going to be a world war? Well, the Creator sent a virus. And the virus will teach us a few things, but whilst we're waiting for the virus to go away, we want to show our humanity. So, what is the first do's and don'ts? You do not give medical advice unless you're a doctor. You do not say, I did this and it worked, because you may be misleading the person you're talking to, who are desperate and may listen to you. But they may ask you, is it true that if I take salty warm water every 10 minutes, I'll wash down the virus? You must not agree or disagree. You must say, salty warm water is always good for someone who has a sore throat. But whether it's good for you, it's only when you ask your doctor that you'll have the right answer. So do you know where your doctor is? What difficulties are you having to contact your doctor? And then you give them the country's helpline. There will be a medical helpline where people can call to find out how do they get themselves diagnosed, tested and treated. So you must handle questions not by giving them advice, because we are not trained to give advice for medical reasons or for medical grounds. Equally, somebody will say, I have a mortgage problem because I can't pay. What am I supposed to do? And you've read that there has been a mortgage holiday declared. You don't start giving advice about the mortgage holiday. You might get it wrong. You will, if it's something that's not on your resources information that we've shared with you as part of this training, then you will say, I'll get back to you. So you Google it and you send that caller the information either as a link, as a PDF, or if that person is not internet savvy, then you will take the trouble of getting it translated into the language of that person. I mean translated not only in terms of language, but also from the jargon that might be business jargon to the layman's language. Now, in all of this, when you do this, you must not take the position of an expert. Because even if you're an expert in your field, if you're a good cook and a chef, you're not an expert when it comes to mortgages or medical advice. So do not think that you are not being adequate enough by not being able to answer the question. You must always signpost them or reserve your position and say, I'll come back to you on that. Do not be judgmental. So if someone says, I don't want to do this because this came from China and my neighbor is Chinese, and don't agree or disagree with them. You will do what humanity dictates that you do. Again, always remembering that you are there to listen to them and not to dictate to them or advise them. You are to signpost them. Now, if you have a scenario where somebody's actually got hold of your number, or rather has got hold of the helpline's number, and we have directed the call to you of a person in need of food, because we don't know how long drawn this is going to be, and you are in a position to give the food. Now, you have to decide whether you are creating a dependency that you will not be able to continue to fulfill, or you're able to create an avenue by which that person can continue to receive help from a charity that provides food. For example, United States has opened a food bank in Derby in the UK and in America and in India, or to other charities who are going to be able to give the food continuously. But because you feel charitable, that she's hungry, she hasn't eaten all day, and by the time the food comes from the other charity, it might be too late. Yes, you may drop off a meal, but don't overextend yourself, because this is a helpline. You can be the first aid in terms of listening, and the first aid in terms of something you can deliver. So what you say and what you do must be sustainable. When will we start this? We will start this in the next few days. Believe you me, the days are flowing into each other. I don't even know what date it is today, except it's Sunday. Very soon I won't even know it's a Sunday, and it's going to happen to all of us. We want to be able to get all the resources that we will supply to you of the countries that you're going to be operating in, including hotline numbers, medical emergency numbers, or other resources of websites and sites and names of charities that are providing relief at this time. Secondly, we want to be able to get a whole team organized. As soon as I had put the ad out on WhatsApp and Facebook, to date I've had 20 people registered, and they are from countries like Australia, Malaysia, India, of course, UK, Canada, and these are the countries that have signed up. If you're from any of the other countries, or you know somebody there and you want to signpost them to us, by all means do that. So where is this happening? This is happening at your home. You will receive an email or a WhatsApp message from the training center, the Helpline Centre, if I may call it that, where you will be given the details of the caller. The call is going to come to us in one of two ways. We're giving out a number where a person will leave a voicemail, a caller will leave a voicemail, which will come to us by email, and we will forward it to you because it's in the country or region where you are, with some specific instructions or any background information, and you'll be guided about the nature of that caller's inquiry, because they would have left a message. Or because the number that we're giving is a UK number and we are opening this helpline globally, we are actually also working on setting up a Google form which will be put on Facebook and WhatsApp groups for people to fill in some basic information and their telephone number and their query or request. Even if the request is, I want to talk to someone, can someone sing a shabd for me? And by the way, like I said, don't overextend yourself. If you cannot sing a shabd, do not try to do that. You can share the shabd with the person because you want to be able to do something that energizes them. I'm not suggesting you shouldn't sing a shabd if you don't sing it melodiously, but I'm saying make sure you do not overextend yourself. So the calls will come to us either as WhatsApp calls or through the phone number, the dedicated phone number that we've set up, and we will then channel it to you as a WhatsApp message or an email, which is why we need those two details from you. And you will and then send it off to the caller. You will send off a message, say, I'm going to call you now, is it convenient? Or just pick up the phone and speak to them depending on the urgency. So it will be happening on the phone. It could be a WhatsApp call. We will not encourage you to make non-WhatsApp calls because they can be expensive. But if there is someone in distress who has not got a WhatsApp, we will do what we can, because that will be part of the problem, that she is not accessible except from a landline. Why are we doing this? We're doing this because for the first time in my lifetime, and since 100 years ago, since the last time there was a pandemic of this nature, which they have called the Spanish flu 100 years ago, the world is united in a way that no war has united us, because in a war, in the Second World War, there were warring sides and there were many enemies. When we had the financial crisis of 2008, there were human beings to blame. There were people who had to pay the price because they were either the people with mortgaged homes. But for the first time, we are all equalized by a virus. And in that equal feeling, we must surely find an energy that makes us feel that the divine has given us the opportunity of recognizing and enjoying that equality. Everyone is equal today. Everyone has kids that they can't manage because they're not in school. Everyone has to cook their own meals, which they previously had other people providing them for, or in the school canteen, or in the office cafeteria. So everyone is not able to do what they usually do, but they're all at home. Home is a place where you feel most guarded and safe. In that safety, you will be able to do this seva. You are not under the same pressure as in a world war, but you are under a pressure to bring peace to the world through the equality of how its resources are used. Again, I repeat the guidance as to what you must do and not do. First of all, you must listen. You are not there to have a discussion or giving a lesson about the goodness of salty water down the throat. You are to direct and signpost your caller. You are encouraged to do this in a very concise way of about 5 minutes, because you do not want to start having a counseling session about other problems unrelated to the situation the caller finds himself in, to do with their mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Because this helpline is about people in a scenario because they're alone, and that aloneness is not allowing them to talk to anyone else, and you are the listener. You will give them the information which is on websites if you can summarize it sufficiently, but if you can't, you will signpost, or you'll tell them that you'll call them back with a summary of it in the layman's language, and you will follow up if there's necessity of a follow-up call. And your final step is that you will fill a short form that you would have received when you received the request to call somebody. And that form, you would tell us how the call went, what was the conclusion, is there follow-up required. Remember, you're a listening service. You must not overextend yourself, but if humanity requires and dictates that there is a bowl of rice and curry and potatoes that you can give to a lady who's living just a few streets away, and the law of the land allows you to travel that distance, and the signposting to a charity that could bring her a meal would take a day, then go ahead by all means and do that. But do not overextend yourself. Make sure that you can sustain the promise that you make to the caller that you will find her and him help. I promise you, you're going to enjoy this, because for the first time you'll be connecting with strangers for whom you can do something because you are in the same position as they are in. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.